Section 2.2, U.S. System Units of Measure. This video will help you measure in inches with a ruler and a tape measure, recognize the conversion factors in the U.S. system of measure, convert units of measure in the U.S. system. Measuring inches with a ruler and a tape measure. Well, let's start with a ruler here. So the longest marks on the ruler are made for inches. So you're going across the ruler here, you can see the larger marks here. I've got one highlighted with red for 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inches, 4 inches, and so forth. So basically what happens is the larger units of measure get the larger marks here. So you can see that the inches get the largest, and then we go down to the half inches. Those get the next largest, and then a quarter, and so on and so forth. To identify the smaller fractional marks on the ruler, you need to understand how these marks are made. So fractional marks are basically made by cutting the distances in half. So we're going to start right here with 1 full inch. And so I've got an inch here that's going from 1 inch to 2 inch. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this inch and cut it in half. And when we cut it in half, it makes sense, we get a half. So, you know, if I was measuring here, this would be 1 inch. That would be 1.5 inches. And then I would go all the way up to 2 inches there. So now, basically, we're going to take each of these halves and cut each half in half again. And that's what we have down here. So I've taken the half, which was right here, and then I cut that in half. So this distance from 1 inch over here to a half inch gets cut in half. And notice now we get fourths because we've now split this full inch here into 4 equal pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have these 4 equal pieces here. And now notice too that if we count these fourths out, I'll have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4, the whole inch there. Now another thing to notice is that 2/4 is the same as 1/2. So when we're counting by fourths, we also count the 1/2 measurement we made previously. So I wouldn't want to count 1/4 and then jump all the way over here and say that's 2/4 because I've traveled twice the distance. You know, I want to go 1/4, and then we count the next mark as 2/4, which is the same as 1/2, 3/4, and then all the way up to 4/4. Now we're going to take each of these fourths and cut them in half again. So here are my fourths to begin with. You know, there were my 4 pieces. I divided into 4 equal pieces. Now we're going to take those fourths and divide each of those in half. And now we've divided it into 8 equal pieces. And so these are 8s. So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and all the way up here for the full inch would be 8 out of 8. Now notice, just like we used the mark for a half when we were counting fourths, we are going to use these marks again as we count eighths. So I'm going to say, here's 1/8, and now notice 2/8 is exactly the same thing as 1/4. That's exactly the same thing as 1/4, but it also is the same as 2/8. So then 2/8, 3/8, 4/8 is a half. And anytime you're counting any marks on the ruler, you can always use the half as kind of a gauge to tell if you're on the right track in terms of the measurements you're counting. Because if you're halfway, you know, 4 out of 8 is halfway, and we're right halfway at the inch here. So 4/8, 5/8, 6/8. Notice when I'm counting 6/8, that's exactly the same measure as 3/4 above. And then 7/8, and then the full 8/8. So now we're going to take and cut each of those 8ths in half again, and when we do that we get 16ths. And you can see I've got a big blown up picture here of all the measurements. So here's my 16ths. Here was an 1/8. Starting out here, when I cut the 8ths in half, then I get the 16ths. And as we count by 16ths, we are going to count all the other marks that we used before. So notice there's 1/16, 2/16 is also the same as 1/8, 3/16, 4/16, 5, 6, 7, 8/16, and again we're halfway there, and you keep counting all the way over to 16/16. So some rulers even cut this smaller. They cut the 16ths in half again, and then we get 32nds, and sometimes they cut those even in half, and we get 64ths. Let's go ahead now and look at an example that will help you understand how to measure with the ruler here. So let's see. Example 1, determine the length of the nail in inches. Draw a line to the intended measurement. Okay, well, let's see. So here's the end of the nail. I'm going to draw a line down here, and let's say then this thing comes straight down. It goes right there. That's the mark I'm going to measure. Now I need to determine how long this nail is. Well, let's see. The way that I do that, first I'd say, okay, we've gone 1, 2 full inches. So I've got 2 full inches, so I'm going to write that down. 2 full inches, and now we're going to have a fractional part of an inch left over. Let's see, it looks like I'm on the smallest tick marks here on this ruler, so let's determine what those marks indicate. All right, so here's the full inch, going from 2 to 3 is the full inch. Now if I cut that in half, basically the way we figure out what this measurement is we kind of just remake the ruler. So I'm going to cut this full inch in half. Here's a half right there. Now I'm going to cut that half in half, which is now going to give me fourths. Then I'm going to take those fourths, cut those fourths in half. That gives me eighths. And I still got to go down to the smaller one. So the smaller unit there is 16ths then. So basically what I have here is I'm measuring by 16ths. So I just want to count these out then. So I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 16ths. So this would be 2 and 7 16ths inches. And you can also, you'll see sometimes people abbreviate inches instead of writing that all the way out. Use the double marks up there, the quotation marks, to indicate that those are inches. Let's take a look at another example here. Example 2. Determine the length of the nail and draw a line to our intended measure again. Okay, so here I'm going to take and draw a line. We're coming right down to that mark. So again, this is going to be 2 full inches plus a little bit more. So 2 full inches plus a fractional amount more. Now, this mark here, let's see what those are. So I'm going to start here going all the way from 2 to 3 inches. First, I'm going to cut it in half. Here's my mark for a half. Cut that half in half, which is right here. Those are quarters. And that's what I have here. That's the same size as this mark. So these are quarters. So I'm going to count these quarters out. 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters. So 2 3/4 inches. Now it's time to pause your video player and answer this practice question 3. When you're done, hit play to see how you did. Okay, practice 3. All right, well, let's see. We'll draw this down. Hopefully you came up with something close to that there. All right, that's 1 inch plus a little bit more. So I'm going to write down 1 inch plus a little bit more. Let's figure out what those marks are. So here's my full inch there, going from 1 to 2 inches. Cut it in half. There's a half. Cut that in half. There's a quarter. I'm not done yet because that length of that is 1 more. So I'm going to cut this quarter in half again. Those are eighths. So this mark is an eighth mark. Now I got to figure out how many eighths there are there. So I want to count every 2 tick marks as an eighth. So I'd say 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8. So that's 1 5/8 of an inch. Okay, go ahead and pause your video player again and answer practice questions 4 and 5. Okay, question 4, let's see, it's probably right about there. All right, so this looks like 1 inch plus a little bit more. Now those little tiny marks are 16ths, so I'm just going to count those out. 1, 2, 3. So 1 3/16 inches. Practice question 5. Looks like about right there. So this is 3 inches plus a little bit more. Let's see. Here would be a half. Here would be a quarter. And then here would be an eighth. So those are eighths. And then actually I'm just counting one of those eighths. So that's 3 1/8 of an inch. So recognize conversion factors in the U.S. system of measure. So here are a bunch of conversion factors for you. Here's some for length. You know, and a lot of these we're going to be used to. 12 inches is a foot. 3 feet is a yard. Here's one you probably aren't aware of, but 5,280 feet is 1 mile. And for time, again, for time, you should be familiar with these. 60 seconds is a minute, 60 minutes is an hour, 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, 365 days in a year, and also 12 months in a year. Go ahead and pause your video player now and answer practice question 6. Try to do as many of these as you can from memory. The ones you can't remember, just look up at the table and write those down. Okay, so 1 mile should have been 5,280 feet. 1 yard should have been 3 feet. 60 minutes is 1 hour. 1 minute is 60 seconds. 12 inches is 1 foot. 7 days in 1 week. 365 days in a year. And 24 hours in a day. Over here we're writing the correct unit of measure. So 60 minutes is 1 hour. 12 inches is 1 foot. 1 day is 24 hours. 1 minute is 60 seconds. 365 days is 1 year. And then 1 mile is 5,280 feet. And 1 week is 7 days. And 1 yard is 3 feet. And so here are some conversion factors for weight and volume. So over here for weight, and then over here for volume. Weight, we have 16 ounces is 1 pound, and then 2,000 pounds is 1 ton. And over here for volume, we have 8 fluid ounces is 1 cup, 2 cups is a pint, 2 pints is a quart, and then 4 quarts is a gallon. One thing to note here is that ounces measure weight. Notice right here we have ounces. Those measure weight, and fluid ounces, those measure volume. So that's easy to get those confused because they basically, kind of have the same unit there, but they're actually different things. Ounces is for weight, fluid ounces is for volume. Okay, pause your video player and answer these practice questions. When you're done, hit play and see how you did. All right, so there's 8 fluid ounces in a cup, 16 ounces in a pound, 1 pint is 2 cups, 1 quart is 2 pints, 1 ton is 2,000 pounds, 1 gallon is 4 quarts. And now over here the correct unit of measure, 1 ton is 2,000 pounds, 1 quart is 2 pints, 4 quarts is 1 gallon, 1 pound is 16 ounces, 1 cup is 8 fluid ounces, and 1 pint is 2 cups. So convert units of measure within the U.S. system. Let's start with a definition. A conversion fraction is made by placing units of equal measure in the numerator and denominator. For example, 3 feet equals 1 yard. This we got straight off of our table there. So those are units of equal measure. 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. These equal measures can be written in 2 different conversion fractions. So the first one is if we put feet in the top, 3 feet in the top, and 1 yard in the bottom. Now, since these units of measure are equal, this fraction is equal to 1. So if I multiply something by this fraction, I am not going to change its value. Now all I got to do is switch these units of measure to give me my other conversion fraction. Now 1 yard in the top, 3 feet in the bottom. Again, both of these units are equal in measure. So if I multiplied by this fraction, it would give me 1. And basically what happens here, depending on which way we're going in conversion, either feet to yards or yards to feet, we want to use one of these 2 conversion fractions. Now let's take a look at some examples that will help you understand how to use a conversion fraction to convert units of measure in the U.S. system. Example 8. So use the fact that 1 quart equals 2 pints. So here's our conversion fraction. 1 quart equals 2 pints, and we want to convert now 8 quarts. So we're starting with 8 quarts, and we're going to convert that now into pints. So the way we do this is we take this 8 quarts, our starting amount there, and I'm going to write that as a fraction. So I'm just going to write 8 quarts over 1. Just like we write a whole number as a fraction, we're just going to put 8 quarts over 1. Now I want to multiply by the right conversion fraction here. And so I got 2 choices. I can either put quarts over pints or pints over quarts. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to do this. I'm going to put 2 pints over 1 quart. The reason I'm doing that is I want to divide out these original units of measure. So just like a common factor can divide out, common units of measure can also divide out. And if I put the quarts in the bottom, that will divide out my original or old unit of measure. So this will be gone. Quarts and quarts are gone. And now you can see the only unit of measure left I'm going to have in this multiplication is pints. So now I'm ready to multiply. So I would say across the numerators here, I'd say 8 times 2 is 16. Across the denominators, I'm going to get 1. So I'd get 16 over 1, and that's pints, which is just equal to 16 pints. Notice, since these things are equal, 2 pints and 1 quart, I'm essentially here multiplying by a value that's equal to 1. So I'm not changing my original amount, I'm just changing the way that it looks by multiplying by this conversion fraction. All right, example 9. Use the fact that 1 foot equals 12 inches, and we want to convert inches into feet. So first I'm going to start with my original unit of measure and write it over 1. So 72 inches over 1. Now I want to get my conversion fraction here. I want the inches to divide out. So I'm going to put down here from this information right there. There's my There's my conversion right there. I'm going to write 12 inches down here, and I'm going to write 1 foot up here. And again, I'm doing that so these units of measure will divide out. So inches and inches are gone. Now I'm going to multiply straight across, and I get this. I get 72 feet over 12. And so now all I have to do is do that division. 72 divided by 12 is going to give me 6. So that's going to give me 6 feet. Example 10. Use the fact that 5,200 feet equals 1 mile and 60 minutes equals 1 hour to convert 10,560 feet per minute into miles per hour. Okay, a lot of stuff going on here, but if we work at one little piece at a time, we got it. Same thing I did up here. I'm going to start by writing my original unit of measure here as a fraction. And here it is, my original unit of measure. It's 10,560 feet per minute. Here's what that looks like. 10,560 feet per 1 minute. So what that means when we write it out, and this is the English version of that, 10,560 feet per minute. This is how that translates mathematically. 10,560 feet over 1 minute. Now I want to multiply by 2 conversion fractions here. One, that's going to change feet into miles. So that's what I want to do. I want to go from feet to miles. So let's start here. I want the feet to divide out. So I'm going to put feet down here, and I'm going to put miles up here. Now I would go back to my chart, or actually the stuff is given right here. So I'd say, okay, 5,280 feet is 1 mile. Now notice, let's check our units here. The feet are going to divide out and leave me with just miles there. So that looks good. That's going to introduce miles for me. Now let's multiply by 1 more conversion fraction. This is going to take care of time. Notice I started with feet per minute. Now I want to convert this into miles per hour. So I want to take these minutes and convert them into hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my units of minutes up in the numerator here. The reason I'm doing that is it will divide out down here with this one in the denominator. So minutes up top, and then hours down below. And my conversion there is that 60 minutes equals 1 hour. Now let's take a look at our units, and you'll see that we have this thing set up correctly. And that's the nice thing about doing it this way. So the feet divided out. The minutes are going to divide out as well, because we have 1 minute in the denominator and one of them in the numerator. And so we can tell that our final answer before we do any computation here is going to look like this. In the numerator, I'm going to have miles, because that's the only unit left up in the numerator. And in the denominator, I'm going to have hours. So I haven't done any calculations, but I know my conversion here is set up correctly because I'm ending up with the right units of measure at the end. Now all I have to do is go through and multiply this out. So in the top, I'm going to get 10,560 times 1 and then times 60. So when I multiply that out, I get 633,600. Across the denominators, basically 1 times 5,280. So I'm ending up there with 5,280. Now I want to divide this out because miles per hour means miles per 1 hour. That's what I want to have in my denominator. So I'm taking 633,600 divided by 5,280. And that's going to give me 120 miles per hour. Now it's time to pause your video player and answer these practice questions. When you're done, hit play to see how you did. Okay, practice question 11. So here's our conversion units there. 1 pound equals 16 ounces, and we're going to convert 80 ounces into pounds. So let's start by taking our starting unit of measure, which is 80 ounces over 1. And now I am going to convert that now. I want the ounces to divide out, so I'm going to put ounces down below, pounds up top, and then the conversion is that 16 ounces equals 1 pound. So now I'm ready to multiply. So let's check our units first here, though. So let's see. Ounces and ounces are going to divide out, leaving me with pounds, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm in good shape there. And then across the top, I'll get 80. Across the bottom, I'll get 16. And so 80 divided by 16 gives me 5 pounds. 12. Use the fact that 1 gallon equals 4 quarts to convert 7 gallons into quarts. Okay, so we're starting with 7 gallons. Write that over 1 so that it's a fraction. Now I'm going to multiply. I want to divide out the gallons and introduce the quarts. So here's my equal units of measure there. 1 gallon equals 4 quarts. Let's check our units. Gallons and gallons divide out, leaving us with quarts. So we're right on track here. Going across the top, 7 times 4 quarts is going to give me 28 quarts. In the bottom, I just have 1 times 1. So we're just going to get 28 quarts there. Okay. Question 13. Use the fact that 5,280 feet equals 1 mile and 60 minutes equals 1 hour to convert 65 miles per hour into feet per minute. All right, here's where we're starting. So let's write that as a fraction. 65 miles per 1 hour. Now let's got 2 conversion fractions here. It doesn't matter which one you do first. Since this was listed first, I'll go ahead and convert that one first. So we want to get rid of the miles here, divide out the miles. So I'm putting miles in the denominator, and I want to introduce the feet. So I'm putting feet up here. Okay, so then it was 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. You can see our units of miles dividing out now and leaving us with feet. So that's halfway there now. Now what we need to do is we need to divide out, we're shooting for feet per minute. So I want to divide the hours out here. So I'm going to put an hour up here and a minute down here. And then here's my conversion. 60 minutes equals 1 hour. Let's watch our units there. The hours are going to divide out nicely for us. And let's see what our final answer units look like. In the top, I have feet. In the denominator, I have minutes, which is exactly what I was shooting for, feet per minute. So I've got this thing set up right. Now I'm just going to go through and multiply it. So I'd say, okay, 65 times 5,280 gives me 343,200. And in the denominator, I'm just going to have 60. So to get this answer, then I'm going to divide this out so that I have 1 minute down here. That would be feet per minute. So 343,200 divided by 60 gives me 5,720 feet per minute.